So hello and welcome. My name is Danica Lani and we are here live at the Bandstand by Qtopia, Sydney. Yes. For our very first live Kings of Joe. Anyone know Kings of Joe? I've heard of him, Kings of Joe. Live for our very first Kings of Joy podcast show. So thank you so much for being here. I would like to acknowledge that we're gathering on Aboriginal land and that this land always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Sovereignty was never ceded. No treaty has ever been signed. And so really important to remember and honour the ancestors, the elders past, present and emerging, and honour that relationship that is sacred between indigenous people, the traditional custodians of the land and their relationships. So we are here on Gadigal Country of the Eora Nation, and I want to pay my respects to their ancestors as well. So, yes. So today on the Kings of Joy podcast, I have a very special guest with me, Po Trancey. Thank you. Welcome, Po.
Thanks, Danica.
Yeah. So, how did we first meet? Do you remember?
I do. It was after the Kings of Joy, after Mardi World Pride, I think. And then I got in touch with Kings of Joy because someone from my ACON volunteering group had suggested Kings of Joy for drag kinging.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like, I always wanted to, I wanted to explore gender, I think, with drag king. And I thought drag king would be the first sort of artistic thing to do, to be able to do that for self-expression.
Yeah.
So I was like, and Kings of Joy was seemed like a safe space to do it, and it was. So yeah. But I think right after World Pride, because there was a lot of highs and lows, and that whole Kings of Joy thing didn't happen right after it, but we had a break period where everyone was well rested.
Absolutely. Yeah. Did anyone else here experience those lows and highs during World Pride, and then the aftermath, and then the month holiday that we all needed to take to recover?
I was so sick of it all. I was like,
stop the game! Stop the game!
But no, I was left wanting more right after it. So I was like, what now? But yeah.
It's a good question. So you're the thing that really called you was about gender and exploring gender. Where had you, give us a picture of where you'd been in your life in terms of gender and thinking about gender. What had been your thought process so far?
I think in terms of exploration of gender, that's been fairly recent, only because the environment around me has also been kind of supportive of that. Because I think a lot of people, even the people that I've had conversations with, when you grow up in a space where gender or queer identities are seldom spoken about, you don't really think about it, but then it's kind of deeply internalized within you, where you're it's just a sense of separatedness from the people around you. Even though you can get along, there's still some sort of void. But I don't think I've actually acknowledged it. You just live life through it, and then you see people being expressive and really just embracing themselves in a really very gender euphoric way. I think that was affirming for me. So, and that kind of led me to me questioning or even thinking about the different ways of expressing myself and my queer identity. Yeah.
Yes. And tell us, where did you grow up? Where was this setting? Talk us through.
I was born and brought up in India, and I moved here when I was 18. So fairly conservative, even though the school life was kind of open. I think most of my life there was very closeted, or didn't talk a lot about sexuality, gender, or anything to do with any social relationships and aspects of it. But yeah, I guess like the change of environment, contextual change, and the freedom for yourself to explore by yourself, and independence in a way has kind of helped shape up that sort of thing. And also parts of India like is very cultural and religious. So I guess even though the family is supportive, it's not the same with like extended sort of,
extended networks and society and religion in particular. Which kinds of religion in India?
I was brought up in a Hindu household, although we don't really practice it very extensively. It was kind of like the festivals were celebrated. It was more like a cultural, traditional thing rather than it being a spiritual or religious routine. But I think what I've also realized is that reconnecting with my queer self has also got me connected with my religious part, because apparently a lot of like Hindu background has to do with androgyny and transsexuality. And I'm still learning about that, so I'm kind of like novice to that learning. But it's really interesting because I feel like somehow reconnecting with your authentic self is somehow keeps you more in touch with your spiritual self, or the religious self.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that was something that you and I spoke about before you joined Kings of Joy, when you were finding out about it. Mm-hmm. We had quite an extensive conversation about spirituality and, learnings from, I teach queer tantra, so learnings from Hinduism, learnings from, divine masculinity, divine femininity, divine androgyny, and the different, deities like Shakti and Shiva and Adna Eshvara. So can you tell us a little bit more about your explorations with that?
I still am learning a lot about that, but for me, it makes a lot of sense when I read it from the perspective of like religious texts. The thing that I read was the Bhagavad Gita, but I didn't really understand it when it was taught in school, because I don't think a lot of people really, I guess it's just mentioned in a way where it's a story, but they don't really dig into the meaning or the values behind it. For me, the divine masculine and the divine feminine is like, divine masculine has its own traits of like, I guess, being grounded, balanced, goal-orientated in a way, or direction and power. And feminine aspects would be just kind of like moving, dancing, flow, and all of those. And I think with drag, in my personality itself, I think it's like you need to venture into different extremes to find a balance, and make mistakes along the way. So I feel like drag has been a space where I can like outwardly do that without, I guess, feeling guilty about it. Like Po can make as many mistakes as he can, and have no consequences.
Yes.
but Sneha can't do that in real life, right? So yeah, Po's like my alter ego, where I just allow him to do whatever he wants to without regretting anything on extremes. Yeah. But eventually he'll learn, he'll become wiser over time. But right now he's still very, very chaotic in his expression. So you'll see him doing random things. Yeah. Still finding himself.
And so when we got to see Po Trancey on stage in your debut Kings of Joy group performance, Sweater Weather, right? What were some of the traits or the expressions or the ways of moving or being on stage that Po was able to do that Sneha wouldn't be able to do necessarily in everyday life?
I feel like with his debut, Po was still I feel like he didn't embrace his whole movement quite well. He was definitely channeling his inner masculine more than his inner feminine, clearly. But no, I think that's a goal for Po moving forward, just to like let go
Yes.
And be more expressive and more flexible. But something about being in that space was just so liberating. It's just being around other queer people, being around a good crowd who's celebrating different gender expressions and doing it with other people who are also in the same journey. That was the best part of like that whole experience of Kings of Joy, which I really enjoyed, and which also kind of triggered why I really like being queer.
Yes. Yeah. And so talk us through what's happened since then. What's happened for Po?
Po
journey since then.
Po's laid a bit stagnant and dormant in the back of my head. But no, he's going to have a comeback. He should.
We want him to, right? We do. We want more Po.
He's just rethinking a lot of his choices. And he's on a reflective mode. He keeps going into reflection and comes back out, hopefully with something better and something massive. But so moving forward, Po definitely wants to explore different ways of like, with Sweater Weather, he did something quite spiritual, or his whole theme was like love for all and something like that. Moving forward, I don't know, maybe embrace a bit more of like movement and the divine feminine, whilst also having no care or just being selfish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, what a relief. That sounds like,
yeah. And also, something more, I don't know, we'll see. Still thinking, Po's still thinking.
Yeah.
He's a deep thinker.
He is a deep thinker and a spiritual wanderer. I've been curious about the name Po Trancey. So can you tell us about that?
I thought the name would be quite self-explanatory, but no, I've had to do quite a bit of explaining for it. Po Trancey is, so when you say Po Trancey by itself, it sounds like potency, and that is what I want Po to be like a potent drug whose presence will be known, and hopefully is felt. And then Trancey because to embrace the transient state of Po's mind and the ever-changing interests and habits that Po has acquired, and also Trancey to pay homage to the trans sort of identity within Po itself. And Po just sounds good, so why wouldn't you want to say Mr. Po?
Right?
Yeah.
I love that.
So that was the meaning behind it. Maybe he'll change his name eventually, who knows?
Well, that's one of the great things about being a drag king, is that there's not many rules in drag, in being a drag king. One of the first rules is, draw on your own cultural heritage, right? So that's mostly for white people, right? We have to say that for white people so that we stay in our, lane and don't do anything racially problematic. And then the second rule is you can have a dick, just don't be a dick.
True.
Right? So they're the main two rules of drag kings. But in terms of, there are not many other rules. You've invented Po, you've invented Po Trancey, and you could reinvent Po in any way that you want.
Which is what I love.
Yeah.
Which is what everybody hopefully loves as well.
Yeah.
It's just an endless stream of opportunities, an exploration, an experimentation. Yeah.
I love that word. And so do you think we will be able to see you on stage maybe at Drag Kingdom this year on the 16th of November?
I believe so. I've said yes.
Okay.
So
yes.
We will. Have no idea what we're doing. But it is an exciting little opportunity, so we'll see.
And what are 3 things that you love about being part of the Kings of Joy community?
Euphoria, support, and family.
Yes.
Like, just care and authenticity, space for embracing yourself, which is what,
That was 5, but I love it. We'll keep 5. No, that's great. Amazing. Well, thank you. And it was great to have you here tonight and being on the Kings of Joy podcast. And it's just been a beautiful journey to see you grow and develop Po Trancey through the 6 weeks of Kings of Joy, but now beyond as well, as you continue to develop that persona for yourself. And to hear about your journey.
It's all because of you, Danica.
Thank you.
But no,
Thank you. And you did it. So, And I got the acknowledgement as well. So, thank you. Everybody give it up for Po Trancey!
Thanks, Danica.